going to go through a little timeline of weird instances involving the Justice Department and Donald Trump. So way back in either July or August, Mar A Lago was raided. I believe it was August. And they said, we're here to pick up some documents that Trump has. He's got classified documents. And they created a whole narrative throughout the midterm elections. and they called him a criminal non-stop. Oh my God, this is it. He should be arrested. These are classified documents. How irresponsible. Even the president weighed in.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar A Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible. And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? By that I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And it's just totally irresponsible, totally irresponsible, totally irresponsible.
There's no way this could happen. It's so irresponsible. Mishandling classified documents. Okay. That story kind of went away, but they kept talking about it. All right. This year, after the election, or 2022, after the election, we started hearing about Joe Biden's mishandling of documents right after the election. It's like, whoa, this is interesting. Because they said, oh, it's just some documents up in Pittsburgh somewhere. Somewhere in Pennsylvania. It's just some documents in the Biden School of, I forget what it's called. Somewhere up there. They downplayed it by saying, yeah, but the difference between this and what Trump did is we offered the information up. Okay. I think like a couple days later, they found out that there was more in his garage, in his Corvette. When all this started coming out, I made a video. And I said, oh, they're going to find more. Oh, are they going to find more? And they did. But I want to go back to when the garage ones were found and how the media responded to it. It's not the same because the number of documents. Trump had over 100, over 200, 300, whatever the number was. It was like, this is interesting. And they kept stressing, when they were talking about Biden, they kept stressing it was only 4. It was only 5. Okay, now it's only 7. Okay, now it's 8. But one didn't have classified documents. And they kept doing it. And I'm like, this is interesting because I just following the story. Mind you, Hunter lived in the house. Hunter lived in the house where the Corvette was. He actually worked on that car. And behind the Corvette was the boxes of classified documents. So my issue has always been not that he mishandled the classified documents, but that his crack addict, whoremongering son had full access to them. Whatever. I said about the Pittsburgh ones, or wherever in Pennsylvania ones, about those documents, I said, hey, wait a minute. Who had access to that building? Because it's just a private building. It's not like it was a public building and there was a way to get in there that you didn't have to go through some form of security and identify yourself. It was just some random LLC building under the ownership of Biden, Hunter Biden. And I was like, this is interesting. So that story kind of went away. And then, out of nowhere, Alvin Bragg decides to indict Trump. And it's like, whoa, this was dropped over a year ago. What's going on here? Because it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. It's stupid, but none of it makes sense. Well, fast forward to today, or a couple of days ago. We'll just say fast forward to now. A young lady named Kathy Chung has come forward. Who is Kathy Chung? Kathy Chung used to work for Joe Biden. She was one of his assistants. I know I'm kind of going bouncing around, but I'm going to bring it together, I promise you. Now, Hunter Biden, I've talked about the Hunter Biden-Ukraine connection and the Hunter Biden-China connection forever. I'm going to put the links in my description because there's so many. I can't refer to them all. The story's so long that I don't want to repeat it all. But he had a full-on relationship, much like Fang Fang. This one was discovered because he doesn't work in government. I can see how that can happen. That makes sense to me. She knew she had an in, and somehow she can work her way to Joe Biden. Whether she got access to that Pennsylvania place where Biden left all his records, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know, but the possibility there is what's criminal, in my opinion. It's not the intent. Oh, he didn't intend for a criminal to find it. Yeah, well, he was reckless enough and negligent enough to allow somebody to find it because it shouldn't have been there in the first place. And we were talking about documents dating back to his Senate years. So he's not the president like Trump who can declassify. Even when he was vice president, they don't have the ability to declassify. So Kathy Chung testified in Congress. There was a House committee hearing on Joe Biden's document handling. Remember, we never wanted to talk about it because there was so few, so insignificant. Hey, look, even Mike Pence decided to randomly come out and say he did it too. Why did he do that? To distract from what was going on to Joe Biden. Or to cover for if he did decide to run for president, say, hey, whoa, I let this information out in 2022. What Kathy Chung said, what Ms. Chung said, is very interesting. Because initially, we were told the people didn't know about the mishandled documents of Joe Biden, but we let the governments know. So as long as we told the government, that's all that really matters. We were still being transparent because the government represents the people. Now, that doesn't change the public raid of Mar A Lago, but I could see how they thought that would work. Because technically they did disclose it. They just withheld it from us, which I still think is ridiculous, but whatever. Now we know that it was not in November that they discovered the documents, or December, January, where they actually disclosed what happened, but it was actually May of last year. So in May of 2022, Kathy Chung, who was an assistant to Joe Biden, was asked, or should I say tasked, with taking several more boxes and dispersing them, with a large chunk of these boxes ending up in their Chinatown. So, I am not making this up. I am saying this with 100% certainty on what this young lady testified to in Congress. So when they kept saying, yeah, but there's only 3 documents, 5 documents, 10 documents, whatever the document count they had when they were talking about Joe Biden, yeah, but it's also secured in his garage behind his car. The other ones were, well, they're in a closet in a private facility. These were in one of Hunter Biden's LLC buildings. I believe it was his building. I'm not sure about. But these were in some building in Chinatown. Chinatown. I think it's just a coincidence that the young lady who put all these documents in Chinatown was Chinese. I think it's just a coincidence. And now, when you think about it, because I didn't even look into this, but Trump said something during his speech the other day, right after the indictment. After he left there, he went straight down to Mar A Lago and made a speech, and he said that there was like, I think either he said 1,080 or 1,800 documents were found of Joe Biden's, and I'm like, I didn't hear about this.
Lunatic special prosecutor named Jack Smith is only looking at Trump, yet Joe Biden took massive amounts more documents, even removed many boxes to Chinatown You believe that? And had others stored in unsecured offices in Pennsylvania and strewn all over his garage floor where his now very famous Corvette is also stored. All over the floor, including classified documents. He has 1,850 boxes in Delaware, which he is refusing to give up. Biden is obstructing by making it impossible to get the 1,850 boxes or explain why many documents were located in Chinatown. Can't explain it.
And I told my wife, I was like, oh, I got to look into that. And he didn't say it. He said it, but he should have stressed that. But he did mention it. And I was like, 1,800 documents. I thought there was 7 boxes, then 8 boxes. Maybe he's talking about how many were in the boxes. It was really weird. So I go look into it, and sure enough, the gall, the nerve of him getting on what TV show was that?
You called the Trump discovery irresponsible. Is there something irresponsible here, though, too?
There's degrees of irresponsibility they can be significant degrees of responsibility. The way in which the boxes were packed up from my office, apparently not everything was gone through as meticulously as it should have. But there was no intention. I opened up my home, all my homes. The home on the beach and the home my permanent home. And they spent hours and hours going through everything, personal, everything I had. And that's a fundamentally different thing. There's nothing for me to hide.
The grapefruits you have to get up there and talk about how irresponsible Trump was when he knew he had all this stuff. How do I know he knew he had all this stuff? Because right before the Mar A Lago raid, 2 months before that, he started hiding his documents. Now, was it specifically Joe Biden? I don't know. It could have been all of his handlers, because they're the ones who really run the government. But it's in his name and it's his stuff. It's his documents. Somebody's covering this stuff up. You want to talk about Watergate? Somebody's covering this stuff up. I just want to know who. Because realistically, I don't think Joe Biden is there enough to know all this stuff was going on. But he's still the president. It still stops with him. I need to know what he knew. I need to know who did this stuff. I need to see prosecutions. They wanted to prosecute Trump over whatever he had. Let's say he had 800 documents classified. Okay, again, he was the president. He can declassify. Joe Biden was not. You cannot retroactively declassify. So he can't say, well, I'm the president now, I declassify those documents. No. When he was handling it, it was a crime. When he was a senator, he could not do that. He did it. When he was vice president, he could not do that. He did it. This is, in my opinion, why we are now sidetracking, why it came out of nowhere over the last couple of weeks. I believe they found out Kathy Chung was cooperating with Mr. Comer in the House of Representatives, and they knew at some point over 1,000 more classified documents were going to come out. We need to make a bigger story. And what's bigger than that? Trump going to jail. A mugshot, hopefully. Handcuffs. They ran into some speed bumps there. They thought it was going to be a good idea to do that. I think it was a terrible idea. But they took the lesser of two evils. Okay, if we don't have this left-wing nut job, or as Trump called him, a lunatic, if we don't have this guy bring charges against Trump, it is about to come out that Joe Biden had over 1,000 classified documents in Chinatown. Now we can put into perspective, why would they do this? Because everyone was asking, why are they doing this now? Now the leftists, the insane ones were like, yeah, we're finally going to get them. They never look past. They never look past the story that's in front of them. They never ask why. They never do. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, this is interesting. I was like, well, they think this is a good play. I still don't know. If they give him the nomination, he's still running against Joe Biden. So I couldn't figure it out. Now it makes perfect sense because they were facing genuine, not only impeachment, but indictment of a sitting president. Ironically, they opened the door for that to happen now. So just because the American people don't know that Joe Biden had over 1,000 documents sitting in Chinatown, just because they don't know about it, the federal government does. So, what is our job now? There's still a current active investigation on how Trump handled documents, which is interesting because we now know if they press charges there, Biden has a way more severe case happening here. When they communicated with Trump about his documents, they were going back and forth with his lawyers. They said, hey, you have classified documents. We want them. They came, picked up the documents that Trump or his people had said, okay, this is what you're looking for. They said, you know what? Do us a favor. Lock everything else up that you have. We may be back. That's what happened. They locked him up in a secured home in Mar A Lago that has Secret Service there. That's why this case is going nowhere, because it was secure documents and he was a president. He could do that. Despite what everyone else says, there's a process. No, there's not. I mean, there is, but the president is the only one who doesn't have to follow it. Anyway, I thought this was a fascinating story. I think everyone should look into Kathy Chung. I think everyone should reconsider where this indictment came from and why it came now. A year after the same guy who brought it said he didn't have a case. This is literally trumped up charges.